so much, Komal Simriti ji, joining us from Canada, and you are PhD at the same time PCC and SP, and you're into leadership and relationship coach, which is like certainly a wonderful possibility and opportunity for our audience to have you on this platform so that we can, see your perceptions and what you think about this important topic. The topic is also very important, and in fact, we are very much glad because we are covering this topic for the very first time on the platform of RESO. The topic is the silent marriage crisis, how concise parenting is saving or separating couples in 2025, which is like important because in our societal setups we see marriages being broken apart and falling apart, and multiple challenges and disconnects and different grounds, but that's a different narrative altogether. But the platform of RESO is like stepping through the noise to cause you most relevant and reliable sociological interpretations and narratives to make a society a better possibility for human existence altogether collectively. Once again, thank you so much, ma'am, joining us from Canada. So I would like to sort of ask you my first question, which is very important question. Says, is parenting today breaking or building modern marriages?
Well, thank you so much for connecting with me, reaching out. And before I answer this question, it's really important to bring in what lens I'm coming from. Like you said, that I'm a professional coach and I did my PhD in relationship management back in 2001. And personally, both the topics of marriage and parenting are very, very important for me. I'm a mother. I've been a full-time working professional. And in person also, I have gone through some challenges, like, how in marriage. And while this question is very important, where we are focusing and reflecting on both the relationship of marriage and relationship of parenting and how they kind of interact with each other. But one thing I would say is that these days, when we are seeing a kind of an epidemic happening around marriages, parenting becomes very, very important. However, that's not the only reason why marriages are breaking down. So my lens is that parenting can, of course, it definitely poses a lot of challenges and demands on the marriages. Because if you look at today's society, we are becoming more and more individualist. We no longer are living in those group setups where we have the whole village around us to support us when we become parents. And it's absolutely true that it takes a whole village to raise a child. Working on the couple's mind these days, there are a lot of aspirations and goals for their own life, right? They want to live a certain kind of life or certain standard of life, which poses, additional challenges on marriage. And another thing is a acute lack of learning mindset. Because I look at both marriage and then eventually parenting as different schools of learning about life. But somehow, when we do not enter into these institutions with that mindset that these will demand us to look within ourselves and change ourselves completely, then it definitely poses such kind of challenge which makes us break. However, if we have the right kind of mindset, I think parenting can be a very, very beautiful milestone in our lives, and it can really be a very grounding force. So if I bring in my own personal experience, I believe and I know now by my experience, if I wouldn't be a parent, I would have probably really wrecked my marriage long time back. Because having children and knowing that, yes, you are actually responsible for two lives who've chosen to be your children in this life, it can even bring out a lot of energy, it can give you a lot of anchoring and stability. This can help you not, come in your own way or your own desires. So I think it completely depends on the mindset, the awareness, and the beliefs and ideas of the people. How do they actually look at the relationship of marriage, and how do they look at parenting? If parenting is only a task, yes, it will be very exhausting. But if we look at it from a different perspective and say, okay, what is it really? It can really strengthen and harness our marriages as well. Because one thing which I could say, my personal life journey is a little bit crazy for a lot of people to understand. Me and my husband, we were married for 13 years when we decided to divorce and part ways. Being parents was definitely not one of the reasons. There were a lot of other reasons. And so we parted ways. And after 6 years, we again came together and got married again for the second time. And there, I would say, in between that period of separation, what really made us eventually come back together was the fact that both of us were parents, both of us were responsible for our children, and they were a glue in between us, which eventually brought us back. So I would say, in my personal experience, parenting eventually helped save the marriage instead of breaking it down. However, I'm absolutely aware that in a lot of people's life, becoming a parent after being a couple can really, really impose a lot of challenges. But I would say we just need the right perspective.
A lot for letting us know on this important question how parenting is important, and you've also thrown light like nowadays the life is happening more individual life. It's not deep life, and collectivism is missing, which like in sociological terms, like Emil Durkheim has talked about one of the classical things, or speaking about mechanical and organic solidarity, quite similar and compatible. Would like to move on to my second question, which is again in one question says, why do couples stop dating each other after kids?
This is a very interesting question. And I would say dating as an idea, not all the cultures might relate or connect to it. So if I expand on this a little bit, I would say maybe the question stands as in, why do couples stop paying attention to each other or stop, asking or craving for each other's presence after becoming parents? And one of the reasons I think is very, very biological as well. Because when, and especially for women, more so, that when a woman becomes a mother and she has children, all of her in the care of the child, right? Which eventually brings in a lot of internal hormonal changes in her, where her interest is more and attention is more for the child and not really for the partner. And so, as it happens naturally with women, it doesn't happen as naturally with men. However, with men, it happens in a different way. There are more social demands on them. When the mother is in the care of the children, of course, the man or the father is required to kind of bear the burden of the additional responsibilities. And how it changes men is that they are very future oriented, they are very solution oriented. They would like to create more safety around for their household. So it is very, very natural for both of them to not look towards each other, but to look at their own responsibilities. And I think that is primarily the reason why dating or maybe just making time for each other actually requires a very intentional, a very thought out time they need to carve out. And then it also depends on what are the demands of life on them. Do they have that kind of time and energy available to them? And so some people are able to do that and some are not able to do that. And so for me, I think that's the biggest reason, because it's the nature of demand which takes you a little bit away from each other so that you can be in your duties or in your roles of being a parent.
Mhm.
And one interesting dynamic of it also, I would say, it's not necessarily that this thing is impacted by being parents. A lot of people who go through love marriage and not the arranged marriages, right, would notice that after marriage, after getting married, they are not getting the same kind of attention from their partner as they were early in the courting period or when they were, dating each other. Even that can happen without having any children in the mix. And so that I would say is also something which happens very, very naturally because your mindsets change. Because before getting married, you are attracted to each other. There's a lot of that biological attraction happening. And then also your goal and your aim is to, be with the other person. But after marriage, you've acquired that goal. So what next? So it is natural to happen. That change is going to happen. So I would say that dating require intention, carving out intentional time, and saying why it is still important for us to, make time for each other.
Thank you so much for letting us know, because our biological dynamics and our thought process would change once we have a different stage of journey, while being a male or being a female. Our focus might differ to an extent. Responding to the second question, it's important. A good narrative, a good theory, and empirical support that you've given answering this question. Would like to move on to my third question. Again, an important question says, can love survive in the age of co parenting and shared calendars?
It's a very, very interesting question. And it makes me take a pause and think that, and it eventually boils down to what is our idea of love? How do we look at love and define it for ourselves? If we just define it as an emotion, of course it is fleeting. And the more challenges they'll come in the way, we'll feel like, oh, it's vanishing and it's going away from us. It's no longer there. However, for me, love is not a fleeting emotion. It's a state of consciousness. It's a state where we can operate from. But till the time we have understood and that love is actually a state in which we can live and still continue to feel different ranges of emotions, uh, then nothing is really a challenge. In my view, co-parenting is possible only because people recognize the need of something bigger than, themselves. Even after, say, your marriage is not working, which means as husband and wife, probably you're not working well with each other. However, you recognize your responsibility to your parents, to your children, and you say, okay, we will co-parent, we will fulfill whatever our duties are. It's just not possible without you being in that state of love. It is a little philosophical, but I think it is absolutely true. Because for me, love is very simple. Your ability to look beyond yourself and consider other people and how you are connected with them and what are your responsibilities, What are your duties towards them? It is just not possible without love in the backdrop of your existence. What we call as dharma in our Hindu traditions, being aware of what your dharma is, it becomes possible only because of love. So where does that question come from? Like, does love survive or not? Maybe because in the form that we experience love, which is actually not love, which is probably attention, which is probably attachment, which is probably attraction. So I think it's important for us to say that how we are seeing and experiencing love would make a difference. If we just continue to experience love that, oh, my partner is paying attention to me, they're bringing in gifts to me, and this is how I experience love, then yeah, maybe there's a change in that. But if love is like a backdrop under which all your life is existing, then of course, everything that you do is full of love. You making that time to just figure out how somebody's time is allocated and how much is available for you is also an act of love or an act of service for each other.
Important because uh, love surviving, many people say that love only happens in the books. Maybe in theory, it exists. But the question then automatically crops up, if it is existing in theory, how can it be possible without empirical data? Because theoretically looking into it scientifically and academically, that the theory can only happen when there is something existing in practical domain in a lay language, like empirical possibility must happen before a theoretical possibility happens. So yeah, great and deep insight. Thanks a lot for that. Would like to move on to my fourth question. Important question says, who carries emotional weight in your relationship and why?
The simplest answer to that question is whoever is emotionally sensitive but not intelligent is going to carry the weight of emotions. Because carrying the weight of emotions means that you are experiencing them, you are, sensing. However, you are being driven by those emotions. Whether you're getting overburdened, whether you are in fear or exhaustion or any kind of other emotions, if you are not intelligent as to what exactly this emotion is and how is it impacting me and how can I take charge of it instead of getting swayed by this emotion, then of course you're burdened. Then of course it is a weight on our shoulders. However, if we are emotionally aware, if we are expressive enough, if we know that, okay, this emotion is telling me something important about me, about the other person, about how I'm viewing them, then it's not a weight anymore. It gets very, sometimes people would blame one partner to say, oh, you're not emotional at all, or somebody said, oh, why are you so emotional? I would say that whoever is human has emotions in them. Emotions are the very construct of us. What makes a difference is how much we are in touch with that emotion. Do we have an ability to identify those emotions within ourselves and then in other people? So I think it definitely boils down to our emotional intelligence. And so some people are more in charge or in command of their emotions, which doesn't mean that they're not feeling or they do not have the capacity to feel the emotions, but they can really put them aside and still be present to the situation or to the demands, whatever is required. And the burden goes to the one who is not intelligent enough to say what to do with these emotions.
Okay.
And so that's why I feel in marriage, or especially for parents, learning a little bit more about emotions and being emotionally aware and intelligent is something very, very key.
For responding this important question, emotional weight in your relationship and why. And it's tricky, and people have got to be emotionally intelligent, otherwise they suffer. So now, thanks a lot. Would like to move on to my fifth question, which is a wrap-up question, also a final question, but very important question. Are we raising children or sacrificing our relationship for them?
That's a very good question. I would say the answer to this would depend on what do we really mean by sacrifice, and how and what do we think about sacrifice. If we think about sacrifice is something wrong, that we are, you know, losing something from us, or sacrifice is something that we recognize and realize the importance and significance of, more important than where we are. So I think it's very important to consider our own meaning of sacrifice in here, because it definitely, raising children require a lot of time, attention, energy, presence, which can definitely take away a lot of time, attention, and presence from your relationship. That doesn't necessarily makes it go away. Maybe that makes it a little more stronger. I'll give you another analogy to this. See, the way human mind functions is that we become the creatures of habit. And habit is simply what? That we becomes so adept and so good at something that we do not need to use the same amount of energy in order to achieve the same kind of results once some muscle gets stronger. It needs less and less of our energy and attention. So that energy is accessible to us to put somewhere else, right? Like you drive your car through one route every day, you become so adept. You learn that route that eventually you're not paying very active attention to it. It becomes your unconscious expertise. I think same can happen with our relationships too. If we have really developed strong, trusting, respectful relationships with our partners, then when we are raising children, we really do not even need that kind of a conscious energy to put in our relationship, because that has already given us a solid platform. So would we say that we've sacrificed it? Or would we say that actually we have made it so strong that now it enables us to pay attention to something else? However, if we haven't built that strong platform or foundation in our relationship, then definitely it will feel like we are letting it go, or we are sacrificing in that manner because our attention is elsewhere. So I would say just recognizing that once you marry and when you both would want to have children, then that is what will be demanded from you. And so to pay more attention, stabilize that foundation of marital relationship prior, and then be okay with, okay, yes. And somewhere I think the resilience or the strength of a system or a relationship is tested in how less it needs to stay healthy, to sustain. If you have to use your partner every day to make a sweet, healthy, sweet relationship, I would say maybe it's not that strong, maybe it's not that healthy, that if you have to prove to them every day. Whereas if you have cultivated that inner strength and inner resilience in your relationship, you may do not even need to say that, oh, the food was very good today, or you looked very good today, because your partner knows. They have reached that level of noticing those subtle hints that, oh, you've eaten something with so much of satisfaction, they can see and know that, yeah, you liked it or you did not like it. So I would say the strong relationships are the ones where you really do not need much to say, to ask, but your presence is sufficient because you have found that inner connection.
So thank you so much giving your thoughts and your perception on this important topic, silent marriage crisis. You've talked about parenting today, breaking or building. Modern marriages, why do couples stop dating after they have children? Can love survive? And sort of speaking on this important topic, it's really a wonderful topic, silent marriage and crisis. As you are already familiar, that RESO is a platform where we try to step through the noise to cause you, made you clear inception of the video that giving you sociological interpretations and narratives touching different domains and perspectives which matter today in our society. It's one of the topic which is a matter of great concern, and thanks a lot for appearing on the platform of RESO and giving your comments. And I'm sure that it's going to be a major chunk of benefit for our audience to listen and sort of have a look at your perceptions. And it's going to be a record sociology we're going to be recording. So once again, thank you so much, ma'am, joining us from Canada.
Thank you so much, Dr. Surinder. It's been a pleasure.